She Dreams of Water, a story by RowanLaneStories on wattpad. Blythe kneels before the graven idol of Giacora, flaxen hair fallen like pale gold as she bows her head. In Eredivisie, this is not an uncommon sight. Most, if not all, women partake in this ritual before they make the journey to meet their promised one. But Blythe has a lot more to ask of the goddess than most. Rather than requesting a handsome lover or plentiful children, the young woman is begging the deity to bestow to her that which she has always been deprived of, a loving and kind family. Suddenly, the rough sound of her father's voice cuts through the air.
Blythe, hurry up in there. We don't have all day, you wretched woman.
She rises, giving one last plea to the goddess before exiting the prayer room, her heart beating wildly as she approaches the carriage which will tear her away from all she has ever known. Still, as Blythe watches her mother give her emotionless goodbyes to her only daughter, the bride-to-be can't help but feel giddy that she has finally escaping this wretched place. For 23 years, she has been wrongly mistreated, hated, and enslaved to her unloving parents and siblings. Now, with the promise of a hefty dowry, she would leave this cold forest for the seaside. So she climbs into the carriage without protest, giddy to meet the man she would spend the rest of her life with. As they head towards the coast, the forests give way to weathered cliff sides, and Blythe daydreams about how she will play with her new role as a wife. She pictures tender kisses from her husband, warm hugs from her mother-in-law, and days spent together with her future children who will frolic carefree in the warm ocean. She's being a little optimistic, she knows, but this is all she's had to look forward to during the hardest of times. Could anyone blame her for being hopeful? After a week of travel, they finally arrive. Blythe is nearly trembling as she exits the carriage, wishing desperately for someone to lend her a steady hand. Since it's just her and her stiff father, she resigns herself to gripping the fabric of her dress instead. She allows a sharp intake of breath as her groom emerges from the cottage on the cliffside. Brenton Cage approaches, face stern as cold gray eyes meet ocean blue ones. Blythe's heart flutters, cheeks flushing with warmth, but her fiancé doesn't greet her as warmly as she hopes. Instead, his gaze slides to her father. Her groom hefts the small coin purse from his hip, handing it over to the elder.
200 pieces, as promised.
Blythe's father scowls.
Typically, a dowry is always supposed to include an offering of wine and baked goods.
Brenton meets the look with a sour expression of his own. He roughly shoves the coin purse into the elder's hands with a snarl.
Typically, when someone refers to a maiden as having hair the color of wheat, one pictures a golden hue, not golden streaks of dishwater brown.
Blythe's father scoffs, swiping the bag. He gives his daughter a stern look before turning back to the carriage.
Don't bring us dishonor, girl.
The blonde can only clench her dress tighter, knuckles going as her father turns to leave without another word. Her heart squeezes painfully as she watches the carriage depart, leaving her adrift in this strange new place. Suddenly, she jumps as a stern voice grips her from her self-pitying thoughts.
Are you slow?
Blythe blinks, staring dumbly at the raven-haired man. Pardon?
You have to greet me.
Her groom growls. I'm sorry, I was overwhelmed. Before she has a chance to finish, her fiancé is walking off toward the cottage.
My mother is in the kitchen preparing for the wedding. You will join her.
Blythe twiddles a strand of flaxen hair as she attempts to keep pace with Brenton. Actually, I was hoping we could use this time to get to know. Brenton pauses, turning his icy glare on his bride.
We've just met, and you're already defying me?
The blonde blanches, eyes widening. No, I'm sorry. I just thought.
You don't need to think,
He hisses.
you just need to be quiet at what you're told.
The cruel words are like an arrow to her heart. They pierce her fragile dreams, leaving them bleeding and weak. Cerulean eyes fill with tears, overflowing until they threaten to spill over the sides of Blythe's pale cheeks. The life she had dreamed of was a lie, wasn't it? She had thought that this would be the place she could finally belong, but it seemed fate had cruelly snatched away that idyllic fantasy. Resigned to her fate, Blythe lowers her head, trailing behind Brenton solemnly. Later that night, the marriage ceremony commences. The priestess ties the couple's wrists together with thick vines, slicing them with her ceremonial dagger. The blade gets stuck in the woody stems, a supposed omen from the goddess of love. But the celebrations ensue anyways. When the party is in full swing, Blythe takes the opportunity to sneak away. Her husband, too intoxicated to notice, alone in her ivory finery, she makes her way to the seaside, gazing out onto the glassy ocean. It seems so unfair that the sea looks so beautiful right now, with the water acting as a perfect mirror for the moon. If only she'd been promised to someone kinder, someone who would be capable of loving her. This would be a perfect night to me. Uncaring of her dress, Blythe steps in the ocean until the waves kiss her ankles. Sure, the guests won't hear her over the drunken revelry. Blythe lets her rage be known. She screams ferally, her voice echoing across the water as her tears join the flow. Her mournful keening seems to startle some aquatic creature. She hears a splash from somewhere in the dark water, but Blythe hardly notices right now. Falling to her knees, the silken fabric of her dress sways gently in the water. However, that uncaring attitude evaporates quickly as she notices a massive fin breaching the surface. Blythe attempts to struggle to her feet, but the wet fabric of her dress clings to her thighs. She falls onto her rump with a splash, alarm growing at the sight of something massive moving agilely under the surface of the water. The blonde freezes in fear, as just a pace away now, something breaches the waves. It's a woman. As if in a waking dream, Blythe beholds the emerald green irises that peek just above the veil of the ocean. Entranced with the stark contrast between them and the carmine tresses which drift gently in the current. The woman approaches, form slowly emerging from the water. As the distance between them closes, ice fills Blythe's veins as any doubt in her mind is eradicated. This creature is not human. If it's not the presence of gill slits, claw-tipped fingers, or sideways blinking second eyelids that give it away, it's the giant orange tail that does. The blonde freezes as she tries to recall all that she knows about sirens, vainly searching her memories for weaknesses or ways to escape. Unfortunately, she comes up short as her brain repeatedly trips over the rumor that they eat men alive. Certainly, the creature seems to be sizing her up, carefully studying her from top to bottom. Blythe swallows nervously, wondering if the monster is contemplating an imminent assault. She jolts as the siren extends a clawed hand, seizing the edge of her dress. It rubs the fabric between her fingers, delicately for a moment, studying the texture, before it decides to lift it up to peek underneath. The action causes Blythe to yelp, kicking the clawed hand away with a slipper-clad foot. The siren flinches at the action, simply staring at the long lead, now pointing directly in the air, before returning her intense gaze back to the blonde. "So, you are uninjured." Blythe gasps, mouth opening and closing a few times uselessly as she tries to understand what is happening. What should she do? Should she reply? After a beat of silence, the siren makes a trilling coo sound. "If you're injured, I can heal you. Where does it hurt? Can you speak?" "No, don't touch me." Blythe scuttles back, finally out of the water. The siren only watches, lowering herself to a cat-like position on the shore, head cocked owlishly. "So, those legs do work. Were you perhaps exhausted? Frightened? Not by me, I hope." When Blythe remains quiet, still completely in shock, the siren chuckles. "You are wise, being so cautious. But if you insist on sitting there, unmoving, you might as well provide some good conversation, eh?" "What do you want?" The blonde's voice wavers. The creature cocks its head inquisitively, gaze probing. "Well, for one, I'd like to know why you screamed as if death himself rose from the waves to meet you. And, if I might inquire further, I am intrigued by the garb you wear." "My garb? It's a wedding dress. Today was my wedding." The siren chirps excitedly, tail thrashing. "So, you solidified your bond with your mate. Congrats." "Do not congratulate me," Blythe croaks, voice dripping with despair. "He is my prison. I have no future tied to that man." The siren hums, slapping her tail against a wave that pours over her frame. "Do you require assistance?" "Assistance?" The redhead nods, clever eyes shimmering. "Yes, you seem distressed. Do you need help?" Blythe tenses. This had to be a trap. The blonde thinks of the cautionary tales she had been told since childhood. She was not willing to enter into a contract with this creature. Any wish this surely come at a great cost to Blythe. Besides, if not her own family could be trusted, how could she put her faith in this stranger, in this monster? She's attempting to carry the wet weight of the dress gracefully as she turns to leave. "I don't need your help. Wait." The blonde pauses. The siren scoots forward, tail thrashing. "Tell me your name. It's not often at a human." Blythe fidgets with a strand of hair, nervous. Would revealing her name give the creature power over her? It's a bad idea, but she's curious. "I'll tell you if you tell me yours first." The redhead grins, revealing sharp canine.
I am Calypso, and you are?
Blythe. Calypso makes a trilling sound. A beautiful name for a beautiful maiden. The blonde flushes, turns back on the siren. Goodbye, Calypso. Goodbye, fair Blythe. Taking the sound of the siren, daggers as her cue, the blonde makes her escape. As she approaches the cottage, she sighs and sees that nobody has noticed her absence. The guests have all left. Her husband is snoring, slumped over with a bottle of wine, thinking that the pantheon that she will not be expected to perform her wifely duties tonight. Blythe heads to her room. Once there, she quickly strips out of the tarnished wedding dress into her nightclothes. As she lays in bed, she tries to empty her mind of fears and anxieties that swirl about like a monsoon. But as she slips into blissful unconsciousness, her mind drifts to thoughts of blue-green waves, red hair, and shimmering orange scales. Blythe attempts to adapt to her new life as well as she can. She acts as the perfect wife, quiet, attentive, obedient. But it never seems enough. Even as summer begins to fade into autumn, the blonde is unable to endear her husband. He seems to resent her for some reason, glaring with hateful eyes as he drowns himself in spirits. However, it's worse when he leaves on his boat, leaving her to obtain the catch of the day. The cottage becomes eerily quiet, and Blythe can only feverishly clean, tidy, and bake so much before her mind is screaming at her to do something, anything, to end the isolation. The cottage doesn't have a dedicated prayer room like back home, so she can't even find solace in worship. But perhaps that is a good thing. Rage and sorrow have overtaken Blythe's heart, grief digging in its unforgiving claws into the tender hope she'd clung to for so many years. If she attempted to pray to Giacora now, there is no doubt in her mind she would be cursing the goddess for sealing her fate as an eternal pharaoh. But even entrapped in this unhappy marriage, she has found something to bring her solace: the ocean. Despite it all, Blythe has come to love living by the sea. It's so different from where she'd grown up, further inland. There, the pine trees grow so tall they block out the light, oppressively towering over her. The ocean is different. It's expansive, open, and freeing. Just look out on the expansive blue horizon now makes her imagine she could just dance across the zero plane of glass and find a new place to call home. The blonde smiles, shutting her eyes as she takes in the sounds of the sea, picturing twirling and prancing in the sea foam. "Why aren't you in a good mood?" A velvety voice purrs. Immediately, Blythe is pulled from her reverie. She twists around to spot the siren, perched on a rocky outcropping, stretching languidly in the sunlight. The blonde heart skips a beat at the etheric sight, taking in the delicate curves and vibrant scales. Calypso preens at the attention, throwing a silky lock of carmine hair over her shoulder. "What's wrong? Catfish got your tongue?" Blythe feels her face warm. "No, I just wasn't expecting to see a creature like you out of water." The siren titters, fins flexing. "Think me helpless away from the sea, do you?" Calypso laughs louder as Blythe shakes her head furiously. The redhead leans into her hands, studying the human's face. You were so afraid the last time we met, yet I continue to see you walk my beach. Does the ocean call to you? Life crosses her arms, flustered. She knows she'd probably be running away, but she can't bring herself to do it. For months, her only companionship has been that of Brenton, his cruel words and cold eyes only deepening her craving for respite. Calypso's warm gaze and soft voice seem to satisfy that craving, and Blythe's heart demands she stay, disregarding the fact that is most like finding her bravery. The blonde speaks. This is my home. Calypso trills, tail swishing. Of course, think you would. I got you a gift. Blythe blinks. A gift? The siren nods from her head. She pulls off a necklace, holding it out to the human. It's a pity I miss your bonding ceremony. As your neighbor, I would have loved, but I was able to make this for you. This is what we give our brides on their special day. Cautiously, the blonde approaches. She snatches the necklace out of the clawed hand, leading to a safe distance as Calypso giggles. It's stunning. A collection of multicolored pearls, sea glass, and uniquely shaped shells. She marvels at the ornate gift. This is the most expensive thing she's ever held. The pearls alone could be worth more than what her husband earns in an entire month. She turns her gaze to Calypso. Is this really for me? Yes, it is. The siren purrs. I'm getting you summoned to promote your fertility, but I figure it suits you, considering your predicament. At least, I would not choose to have children with a mate I despised. Life fiddles with the necklace, morose. I don't get to decide that. Calypso cocks her head. You don't. Who has a right to tell you otherwise? The blonde bites her lip. My husband wants children. I cannot go against him. Besides, it might be too late. I could already be with child. The sirens hummed. It's not too late. I know of an herb I could find you, should you desire it. Lithe averts her eyes. I do want, but I always figured that I would have them with someone I love. Calypso smiles, eyes shining. I used to be optimistic like that. I was so certain that my mate would loyally wait with me for our children, but I was mistaken. They abandoned me, and now I wait alone. Waiting for your children? What do you mean? The siren sighs, leaning on her hand. Humans raise their child from infancy, no? That's beautiful. But sirens are very different. Our children hatch from eggs, enter the ocean, then return to where they were laid after their metamorphosis. Blythe turns her gaze towards the horizon, contemplative. How long have you been waiting? 5 years. This spring they will come home. I arrived back here recently myself. You can imagine my surprise finding humans have come to inhabit the beach I chose. The blonde rubs her neck. I'm sorry about that. The siren gives a trilling coo. Don't be. It's a comfort to know that someone is nearby while I wait. Will you visit again? Life fiddles with a pearl. Yes, it's not like there's much else to do here. Calypso smiles, laying her head down as she closes her eyes. I look forward to it. I have been alone much too long. It will be a relief to finally have someone to talk to. The blonde clutches the necklace in her hand tightly. In her mind, she can hear the mocking voice of her father. calling her an idiot for trusting this inhumane creature. But Blythe doesn't care. If she is to be trapped here, she will rebel in this small way. She will befriend the siren. Blythe makes it a habit to visit Calypso regularly. As the months pass, the siren is always so happy to see her, tail thrashing excitedly as her human friend approaches the shoreline. Often, the blonde brings food for them to try together, watching the siren tear into her offerings with zeal. Other times, the siren brings aquatic delicacies for them to roast on the beach, enjoying how her human's face contorts with disgust when offering a large sea cucumber or her urchin innards. These bright moments make Blythe's life bearable as the relationship between her and her husband seems to only deteriorate with time. His temper seems to get worse by the day, snapping over the smallest things such as a wrinkled shirt, a forgotten salt shaker on the table, or most commonly, a so-called smug look on her face. The blonde attempts to tread carefully, putting extreme amounts of care into everything she does in an attempt to placate her husband. But no matter how careful she is, he always finds something that enrages him. Today, his anger has escalated to slapping a bowl of soup from Blythe's hands, spilling the hot broth onto her palms. She cries out in pain, flinching away from her husband's touch, but even her suffering seems to enrage him.
Is everything you do an attempt to anger me, woman? Don't cry those crocodile tears. Nobody's here to you to deceive,
He bellows, tossing his cup at her head. Blythe sobs as she ducks, fleeing from the repugnant man. He screams, curses at her as she runs out the door, but thankfully neglects to follow. She sprints away from the cottage, nearly tripping over the rocks and roots that cover the path as she heads towards the ocean. The blonde takes hiccuping breaths out on the shoreline, frigid water brushing against her toes as she hugs herself tightly. Hot tears stream down her face as she contemplates her misery. Was this all there was? Was she truly trapped here forever? Barely surviving as she prays this horrid man's behavior doesn't escalate.
Blythe?
Blythe startles at the sound of Calypso's voice. She spots the siren a few yards away, red crown bobbing against the waves. The woman's face is twisted into concern as she spots the way her friend holds her injured hand.
Blythe, what happened?
Come here. The blonde shakes her head, clutching her hands as she takes a step back towards the shore. She wouldn't have come so close. They usually had their meetings safely on land, far from where the siren could drag her into the depths.
It's okay,
The red coos.
I won't hurt you. Let me help. Come closer.
Blythe shivers, squeezing her eyes shut. It's a literal siren call, tempting her to enter where Calypso would have the upper hand. Obeying would surely be suicide. But she's so tired of the fear, the mistrust, the aching loneliness, all of it. So Blythe grits her teeth, pulling off her dress and placing it on the shoreline before she wades deeper into the ocean. Calypso trills melodically, pleased as the blonde slowly closes the distance between them. When Blythe is up to her neck in salt water, the siren pulls the human into a tender embrace. The arms enveloping the blonde's waist bring forth a flurry of conflicting emotions, her heartbeat stuttering anxiously. A shuddering sigh escapes her lips as she clings onto the siren, fully adrift now as her heart is trapped between fear and a longing she struggles to understand. Are you going to drown me? Blythe whispers hoarsely. Calypso guides her mouth to the blonde's ear, purring her response directly into it. Does the ocean drown the moon each time they meet? No, my human. I will only steal you away for a time. The siren pulls back, warm emerald irises meeting watery azure once, before she leans her face forward. Every moment is carefully measured, tentative, as the mermaid studies Blythe's expression, searching for any trace of disapproval or hesitation. Finding no resistance, their lips meet softly. Their tender union of their mouths inspires a flood of feelings in the blonde. Overwhelmed, she squeezes her eyes shut as the world narrows to just this moment shared between them. The mermaid pulls away a moment later, chirping and trilling as she pulls Blythe along. Dreamily, she allows herself to be led away from land, the shore becoming distant and hazy. The cold has fallen away with her fear, leaving Blythe with nothing but feelings of safety and warmth. When the rocky cliffs can barely be seen on the horizon, the mermaid leans in close once more. Take a deep breath, love. Blythe does as commanded, gulping a lungful of air before the Calypso drags her. Sunlight dances on the surface of the water, mesmerizing it as it goes further and further away. Bubbles rise as the blonde releases her last breath, resigned to her fate, but the urgent, burning need for air never comes. Their descent stops as the siren releases her hold, squeaks, clicks, and trills, reverberating through the water as she playfully circles Blythe. Her red hair floats animatedly behind her as she twists and dips, smiling in delight as the blonde gives a silent laugh. The siren grips the blonde by the wrist, twirling them both gently in the water before she pulls Blythe securely into her arms. As they float together, the water shimmers and glows, the light cocooning them comfortably. Magic flows through the calm ocean currents, caressing Blythe's skin as the myriad of bruises and injuries that speckle her skin lighten and fade away. Here, in the embrace of the ocean and Calypso, life finally feels at peace. Spring has reached Blythe's little cottage on the cliff. The earth reawakens, eager to flourish and grow in the soft sunlight that dapples the weathered bluffs. Blythe observes the change of seasons with interest, noting how the sea seems to welcome its victory over winter much differently than the forest of her former home. But all is not well, as Brenton's mistreatment of his wife continues to intensify. He always has an excuse. You got too close. You should have moved out the way. You did it to yourself. Lately, though, he doesn't even try to justify his cruelty, putting his hands on Blythe at the smallest provocation. Right now, the blonde is escaping to the shoreline once again after another such violent outburst. She attempts feebly to fix her face as she walks, not wanting to burden Calypso, with another bout of worry. The sea is a little chilly still, but the cold is refreshing on her feet as she sits on the edge of the pier. She doesn't need to wait long until she sees a fin breach in the far off distance. Calypso always seems to know when Blythe approaches the sea. However, Blythe jolts and pulls her feet out rapidly as she notices that rather than the shimmering sunset orange she expects, this tail is marked with white and black spots, and it's not alone. A vermilion red fin makes a quick appearance as well before dipping under. From the turquoise waves, two small faces peek at her a moment later. A boy with short white hair and a girl with apricot orange tresses. They both observe her with malachite green eyes, dunking underwater anxiously when she meets their gazes. The blonde recognizes those eyes anywhere. These are the children of Calypso. As if to confirm Blythe's suspicions, Calypso leaps from the water, putting on a show as she soars through the air with a flourish of sea foam. The sight is awe-inspiring, inspiring tears in Blythe's eyes as the children join in, embodied by their mother's glee. The redhead gives a tittering laugh as she approaches the dock, amused at how the blonde sobs. They're beautiful, Calypso. The siren lifts herself up, leaning into Blythe's side as she watches her children prance among the waves. I know, they're perfect. I couldn't be happier. Blythe watches the children frolic, their carefree natures inspiring a smile on her face. Do they have names? Calypso chirps, nodding. Castine and Miriam. The blonde turned her gaze to the redhead, grinning brightly. It suits them. However, Calypso doesn't respond, gasping. The siren traces the ring of bruises around Blythe's neck, eyes fiery. I cannot stand by and watch him do this to you any longer, Blythe. The next time he dares enter the ocean, I will end him. She growls. Blythe's heart turns to ice. You can't! He'll kill you! Calypso, your children need you! So, you just want me to let him kill you? I can't. The siren's eyes turn mournful. We are leaving soon to rejoin my people, Blythe. I don't want to leave you with him. The blonde grits her teeth. You have your family to worry about. I'll be fine. The redhead caresses Blythe's face, careful with her sharp nails as she turns her face. I will worry about you, Blythe. I want you to be my family. Come with us. The blonde heart stutters. Go with you? Calypso nods, eyes desperate. I can make you like me. We can leave together. Blythe's heart pounds as she contemplates it. Is it even possible? Calypso reaches down her tail, ripping a free shimmering golden scale. Take it. If you consume this, you will change. We are leaving by the next full moon. The siren grips the blonde's hand, squeezing them gently. Please consider it, Blythe. And consider it she does. The thought is terrifying. Giving up her humanity transforming her body to become something new. But it's also exhilarating. As the moon grows each night, so do Blythe's dreams of the ocean. Finally, she can no longer stand it. On a stormy night, when the ocean rages against the cliff, Blythe leaves her husband in his bed and absconds into the night. Calypso greets her at the pier, eyes shimmering as the blonde places the scale in her mouth. It dissolves tastelessly on her tongue, the magic held within coursing through her limbs. She gasps at the sensation, feeling the pull of the ocean immediately. But her absence has not gone undetected. Brenton is stalking towards the breach, rage illuminated by a streak of lightning that pierces through the sky. Fearful, Blythe heads deeper into the ocean, but the storm has made the ocean violent. Buffeting waves combined with the excruciating pain of the transformation, causing her to cling to a rock in disorientation. Calypso attempts to comfort, but quickly turns to the face of the approaching threat. She snarls ferally at Brenton. A clawed hand, etching deep furrows into the stone. She lunges for the man with an eerie inhuman scream, claws aiming for his invulnerable throat. But Brenton's massive size makes him difficult for even Calypso to handle, as she screeches in rage as he backhands her violently. Witnessing the brutality against the woman she loves ignites a fire in Blythe's heart. She lets out an inhuman shriek of her own as she dives into the inviting embrace of the sea. New fangs bared against two infuriated sirens now, the vile man stands no chance. He kicks and screams as teeth and claws rend his flesh. The two women relentlessly dragging him into deeper waters. Panic twists his face as his head slips under the surface. The sight of two sets of glowing eyes etched into his dying consciousness. In that fateful moment, Blythe is freed as the ocean washes away all the sins committed against her. In the months that follow, the nearby village gradually become aware of the fisherman's absence. They'll find the cottage empty of life and whisper rumors that a creature of lore lured the young couple into the ocean, promising them everything they could ever dream of. They won't ever know how close to the truth they got. Hello, my little demon lovers. I hope you liked that story. This is by RowanLaneStories on Wattpad. Don't forget to go and read this story if you like yourself, and she has 2 other works as well. She also has a Patreon on her Wattpad. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. But of course, I hope you have a lovely night or a lovely day, and just know that you are loved. Mwah.